Welcome back to the Professional Fan Podcast, your home for all things fan lifestyle. Today, we are talking about the people behind the music, so let's get moving. Awesome. So, I have written up a big list of every job I could think of and found that there are kind of a few different categories. So, we've got artist and creative, recording studio, touring and live shows, creative and visual, marketing and digital. Then we've got media, publicity and communications, the record label in itself, the business behind it, education and community, physical music, radio and streaming, film, TV, gaming and licensing, venues and festivals, and then like emerging roles or up and coming roles that kind of didn't really feel like they fit in any category. Um, so, safe to say, there's a lot that goes into the music that we all love, that you may not know about. I'm, there's no way we're getting through all of these roles today, but maybe this is the beginning of a series. Okay, so the first category, artist and creative, is kind of the one that most people know about. Like, if we're going to make this into an iceberg, it would be right at the top.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So you've got your singers, your musicians, songwriters, composers. You've got lyricists, producers, co-producers in some cases. You've got, you might have lead vocals, but then you might have backing vocals, um, arrangers, producers, conductors. I really hope that covered most things, but basically the people who are usually right at the top of the credits of the album. The people who you see in the book, like the people who you know really well. For example, everyone knows Taylor Swift, and everyone knows that Taylor Swift usually has Jack Antonoff with her. Um, so those sort of people.
I just think it's important to highlight the grassroots of it all as well. So you've got, even though yes, we all know the big names like Taylor Swift and Jack Antonoff and Max Martin and Harry Styles, all of these big household, worldwide known artists and people who work with said artists. It's really important to highlight the people we don't necessarily know. You
Mhm.
stumble across these small artists, and already the fact that they're a small artist is enough to make you go, oh, they're a small artist. They still have a team behind them that make things exist in the way that they do. And for example, I recently saw Masterpiece at his headline show in London. That was fantastic. And I was able to meet his manager and one of his label execs because their team is so small and so close knit that they can just kind of go everywhere with him. And it's very like feet on the ground, just like frontline type work. And I would have had no idea who these people were. I would have assumed they were just audience members had I not been introduced to them, because Masterpiece is already a small artist. So the people he works with are also quite small. There are a few that aren't. There are a few massive names that he works with. One of his producers is also a producer for 5 Seconds of Summer, which is how he got the gig on Five Sauce's tour. But yeah, just generally, grassroots need to be, I think, kind of pushed forward in all of these conversations and just kind of made aware, just kind of pushed a little bit more.
So the second category that we have is the recording studio. So you've got your recording engineer, your assistant engineer, you have a mixing engineer, mastering, studio manager, studio assistant, studio technician, equipment technician. Um, I feel like there are so many more names. I will be honest, the recording studio is probably the category I know the least about. It's not an area that I have experience in, but it's an area that is so incredibly important. Because without them, you don't have the full album. You don't have the sound that you know and love.
I've never stepped foot in a recording studio.
Yeah. So we need to get someone on this podcast who knows a bit more about this. because I can't help in any way. This next category is probably the biggest category, and a lot of people don't realize that it's the biggest category. So this is touring and live shows. Um, it's actually shocking sometimes talking to people, realizing that they have no idea just how much actually goes into your favorite tour. Um, okay, we've got like the list that I could think of, and keep in mind, this is just the people and the roles I could think of. There's probably so much more that I didn't list here. We have tour manager, production manager, stage manager, tour coordinator, tour assistant, tour medic. Those are hugely important. Security, personal security, the artist team, the hospitality, the runner, the tour bus driver, the truck driver, the merchandise manager, the backline manager, the guitar technician, drum technician, keyboard technician, audio technician, front of house engineer, monitor engineer, RF technician, playback engineer, lighting designer, lighting operator, video director, LED screen operator, camera operator, pyrotechnics technician, laser technician, rigging crew, stagehands, carpenters, set builder, scenic painter, and then you've got all of the crew that belong to the venue, who aren't necessarily with the artist, but are a huge part in making sure the concert goes well. So quite a huge list there, and even I can think of a few things that I think I might have left off. So huge amount of work that goes behind putting on a good show. Your favorite artist doesn't just show up, you know, make sure their instruments are ready to go and then just sing, or play their instruments. There's so much more than that. You have volunteers or interns who are out there no matter what the weather is in the tents, with the merch. Um, you've got like VIP Nation or like a fraction of Live Nation who are making sure that people with VIP tickets are looked after and get go in the right entrance and are looked after and get in and out wherever they need to. Um, there's so many little bits that go into it. If any one small thing goes wrong, it can be catastrophic to the show. I think we've all seen a few videos going live of multiple different tours where maybe the lights weren't quite following an artist, or technology is broken down and it's throwing someone off. We've seen staging mishaps. There've been quite a few videos going around recently of a couple of artists who have had to cancel shows because staging's fallen apart or they've fallen through staging.
This is what I have my bachelor's degree in. This is essentially live event management, which is what I studied at university for 3 years. Very, very cool. There is a hell of a lot that goes into it that, yes, a lot of people do not realize. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it before you even know the tour exists, let alone the tour actually existing in its entirety. For example, Harry Styles has just finished his 12 nights in Wembley, and he did make a point of shouting out the crew every day and kind of panning the cameras onto them. And there was just tents and tents full of people in show blacks, just making sure it all runs smoothly. But even before you get to that point with the people on the day, there are people working for a show that size, I would say roughly 2 years, on all of the things, on audio, on set lists, on staging, on crowd control, on management, on just everything. It takes about 2 years for something like that to come into fruition. There's so much logistics that go into touring that it's just kind of, even studying it for 3 years, we basically kind of just like scratched the surface on everything, which you would think in 3 years at university you'd be able to kind of deep dive into lots of things. But it goes so deep that even when you do a whole module and a whole essay and you do all of this research, you can only really know so much until you're there, until you're actually doing it. Like I've been parts of crews, I've been a photographer on a tour, just little things. And like, even then, I'm meeting people and shaking hands with people who I didn't even know had any part in the whole live side of it. Even just from routing a tour can be one of the most difficult tasks of just understanding where to go. And then you have to contact the venue and you have to talk to managers and you have to get everyone involved. And then you've got to do payments and there's just so much. And ultimately, years and years worth of work that whittles down to like a couple of months.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's something that I'd like to highlight again is the fact that you said up to 2 years. So I think that's something I wish fans understood is when you're bigging your favorite artist, you know, they've just announced an album and then you're bigging them immediately for a tour is like it takes a lot of planning. So if there's an announcement, there might be something coming, but like all of this takes time, and also you can't really expect your favorite artist to push out an album and a tour and then do another album and a tour and all of this because everything takes so much planning, so many people behind it. Um, and also not to mention that like that's exhausting for the actual everyone involved because the everyone on tour has to put aside their entire life for that amount of time that they're touring. Um, and the touring staff might get a break when the artist is back in the studio working on a new album and not touring, but the artist doesn't. The artist has to be in each of these places, whereas other staff may not have to be. So yeah, I just wanted to highlight that you said 2 years for a show like that because that's a huge amount of time. I sure wouldn't
Mhm.
have that time to go and put together a 2 year project where you only see the rewards at the end of the 2 years.
And then it's about another year and a half after that before you get paid for the
Yeah,
artist.
yeah,
But yeah, because you have to think it's you've got to contact a venue and the phrase, I think, the like saying is being penciled in, being penned in, whatever it is, because you have to contact them so far in advance to secure a date that that's where you want to play. And that's why when artists come out and say like a new show added due to demand or whatever, that's been planned. That was planned at the same time they planned the whole tour. It's just that that might not necessarily happen depending on ticket sales. Then they won't do that show and it becomes available for someone else, or the venue doesn't hold an event. But it's not like a random last minute add on because it's sold out. There's suddenly a new show added. No, they anticipated that it would be a high selling show, so they booked for 2 nights in the venue, or in Harry Styles' case, 12 nights, whatever suits,
yeah.
whatever floats your boat, you know.
So I'm going to also bring that up because in the context of New Zealand music and New Zealand shows, think about the fact that it's penciled in. Think about the fact that you may have to book 2 years in advance. And then think about the fact that we have one venue that is constantly used, despite the fact that there are more that exist. So for someone like Five Sauce, they now that they've booked in October, funnily enough, we've also got Noah Khan in October, we've also got Olivia Dean in October. There are so many other artists that are doing tours that are actually going to Australia around about October, November that we don't have coming to see us. And so we've already got limited spaces, and then you have to be penciled in for 2 years. And so unless someone else cancels, of which at that point you've already booked your tour, you're not gonna suddenly get last minute notice of, oh, I can actually jump in and grab this date. That's probably why so many, not probably, that's definitely why so many artists do have to skip New Zealand. And I do think it's a shame, considering that we don't just have Spark Arena in Auckland, we've also got, you know, the Cake Tin in Wellington. I think it's Henry Stadium now. We've also got venues in Christchurch. We've got multiple other places they can go. But they are so unknown to all of our international artists that touring managers probably don't even have them on a list, to be honest. In fact, I know that there are some teams who definitely don't have them on a list because I've seen venue lists for New Zealand for some international artists and have questioned why apparently only Auckland exists. But yeah, I just wanted to highlight that. So when I get, because I have, weirdly enough, received messages from people who were coming to me really upset that certain artists had missed New Zealand. And I've tried to explain there's so much more that goes into that, and that it's not up to me. There's a whole team behind it, but this is why it works that way in New Zealand. So this next category, in our very biased opinion, is one of the best, because it's the category that we fit into, creative and visual. So you have your creative directors, your art directors, your graphic designers, people who design album covers, illustrators, animators, motion graphics designers, photographers, which the best job, concert photographers, the best category of photographers, videographers, documentary filmmakers, music video directors, video editors, colorists, stylists, wardrobe assistant, costume designer, hairstylist, makeup artist, nail artist, jewelry stylist, prop assistant. It just goes on and on and on. But this is a really big one because so many people narrow it down to hair and makeup, stylist, photographer slash videographer, and assume that that would be the same person. And then they don't, oh, and graphic designer, they don't see the creative directors. Most people don't even know what that term means, and I'm amazed at how many people don't. Art directors is another one that a lot of people don't understand. People assume that there's like one illustrator or graphic designer doing all of it, but the person who is like the graphic designer for the merch is not necessarily the same graphic designer that's done the tour poster or the same graphic designer that's designed anything else. You know, there's so many little bits that go into it that I wouldn't have the time to discuss all of that. But yeah, there's just so many little bits. And then also the photographer who is shooting one leg of the tour may not be the same photographer, like the one in the UK may not be the same one signed on for the US. There's like so many people in this category.
Yeah, I think you covered like a good chunk of it just by kind of painting everyone with the same brush of like, just don't assume that there is one person for each individual role, because there is more than likely a handful of people per role in that. Like even as a photographer, guaranteed you'd have a tour photographer for each leg, probably. If you're lucky, you get one whole thing. But you also get your venue photographers, you also get your press photographers, there's lots of different little things. You get your little independent photographers. And I imagine, I can only say that with certainty because I have been those things and I am those things. But I can imagine it's the same for graphic designers. I imagine you have a graphic designer who, plans the tour posters, but then there's another graphic designer that plans the merch, and there's another graphic designer that did the pins, and there's another graphic designer that does the screens on stage. And it's like all of these little things that, like, I think kind of just go over people's heads.
There's so many people I talk to who are like, oh, that, like, this band's graphic designer. And I'm like, which one? Or, for example, with the Harry Styles tour, I have only seen one name called out as a graphic designer. And I think off the top of my head, I think I've seen at least five actually running around. Or for 5 Seconds of Summer, there's not just Andy DeLuca, you've also got Ryan Fleming, and then your photos have done quite well with a point and shoot. There's another girl called Grace. I've seen a few others floating around, and sure, not all of them are like the actual team that are going on every single show, but there are so many people floating around that make this era what it is. And then it's also quite exciting because I know there was someone who photographed Noah Khan who I'd also seen photograph someone else last year, and I got really excited because I'm like, that's a familiar face. Like, the music industry is very small in terms of who is doing the roles, but the teams are very big. So it tends to be the same names working for multiple different teams, but there are so many roles within the teams. I don't know if that made any sense. We'll just pretend it did.
Which is why you have to create you have to be reliable. You cannot, even if you just think it's like a little hobby and whatever, it's a little side thing that you do, fine. You still have to show up for people. You have to show up for yourself. You have to build a reliable reputation because everyone knows each other in the music industry. Even if you don't think that you know someone, you probably know someone who knows that someone. It's like very intertwined, and like I might not know a whole load of photographers and they might not know me, but I know I've got a few mutuals with like Andy DeLuca, and I know that I know some venue photographers who I can like hit up and go, hey, I really want to shoot this show. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, well, you're a reliable photographer. We know you do good work. We'll get you in. Sick. Stunning. If you flake, if you show up late, if you show up unprofessionally, if you take bad photos, if you don't get the photos to the respective teams on time, your reputation will be exactly that, and people won't take you on, and people will go, no, avoid that person because they're no good.
Yeah. Like, the music industry is too small for you to not actually like care about your work and act professional. I can guarantee you people see a lot more than you think. And that goes in two ways. That goes in, if you have done something really terrible, there's warnings. If there's someone who has been really invasive, someone who has just not acted professionally, you hear about it from multiple people. I know there have been if there is something really drastic, there's not a single person I don't get a message from. If it happens when I'm sleeping, or if I'm awake, then I'm messaging other people, being like, heads up about this person. But it also works in the reverse as well, of if you're putting yourself out there, you're really working hard, you're really professional, you're just doing the thing and doing it well, and you're someone that people can trust, you'd be surprised how fast things move. I was surprised just last week with people who reach out about this podcast and say, love your work. And these are names that you would not expect would be seeing your work and keeping tabs on what you're doing and impressed. But on also with new staff I've been able to bring on because, again, my team have shown up, they care, they're reliable, and people want to ask questions or get involved. And in even roles I've been able to join since then. So the music industry is so small, people notice whether you are reliable or going to be a problem. And it's very hard, if you're on team problem rather than team reliable, it's very, very hard to shake that reputation once that's out there. So keep that in mind. People notice. This next one is a huge one that goes unnoticed, unthanked. They are some of the most crucial people, honestly. There's no other way to really explain it. Marketing and digital. So much goes into this. So much planning, so many late nights, early mornings. So you've got your marketing manager, your digital marketing manager, your brand manager, your campaign manager, your content creators, content strategist, social media manager. I feel like I've already said that. Community manager, email marketer, website manager, SEO specialist, paid advertising specialist, fan engagement manager, CRM manager, analytics specialist. You've got Discord managers and like fan community managers. You've got head of socials. You have PR, artist relations, just and. So much goes into this. So these are the people who are protecting. Oh, you've also got like legal teams that fit in this. So you've got the people who are protecting, um, you know, getting videos taken down of when people are invasive. Hint, don't do that. You've got social media rollouts, for example, everything that's happening with the Daily Source right now. Like, there are some people who are like, how are 5 source posting while they're on stage? I'll give you a hint. They're not. Do you see a phone in Ashton's hand and a drumstick in the other? No, you don't. Do you see Luke holding the microphone in his phone? No, you don't. Because they've got a whole team surrounding them. You know, you've got Together, that account, you know, with so many live updates while Harry's on stage. There's so much that goes into that, and a lot of people respond to HQ accounts as if it's actually the artist, which, you know, I'm sorry to destroy that illusion, but it's not. Nor you know, because in this category you've also got like fan accounts and update accounts, you know, the ones who are planning entire weeks worth of content for anniversaries. You've got, you know, some of them are actually, they start as fan accounts and they end up working alongside the artist team to do great big rollouts, or sometimes the artist team themselves for doing these big rollouts. You've got just so much that goes into making sure that people show up, know what's going on with these artists, you know, create a big loud noise to promote their projects and their ongoings. I really don't know what else to say about this, and it's so funny because I'm trained in fan engagement marketing. I fit in this category, and I still don't even know how to explain it because I feel like so much of it. I mean, honestly, you want me to sum up this category in just one little sentence? Big red embargo box. That's the best way to explain this category. Big red embargo box. Late nights, early mornings, big red embargo box.
Yeah, it's an intense one. I think as well. Obviously, I can't say it for every artist ever because you could never really do that. But social media calendars are a thing that I don't think a lot of people realize. Obviously, a lot of like regular people will be like, oh, yeah, I plan my content a couple of days ahead, or I film a lot on one day. Social media calendars, in terms of the music industry, typically go out months. Like they spread out months, and it's not just film a little bit here, take this per photo, and blah blah blah. Like every day, you have to plan at least 4 or 5 bits of content a day. You have to organize the captions, the hashtags, what social media platform it's going to go on, what time, how long it's going to be up for, if you're doing like a survey or a poll or something. Like there is so much that goes into just something as small as a social media calendar that just plans weeks or months worth of social media content, even when it looks spur of the moment. There's still planning that goes into making it look like a spur of the moment thing. Like I said, I can't say that's a thing for every single artist. There are some genuine spur of the moment things. There are some genuine like changes of plans or unplanned things, whatever. But generally speaking, social media calendars are a big part of marketing and making sure rollouts happen. I don't want to say correctly, but smoothly, I guess.
Yeah.
Because it covers everything. Its social media calendar covers just everything.
Yeah, I mean, on that note, I'm gonna let you guys into how my day looks. 6 in the morning, I wake up. I have to schedule a whole bunch of posts. So that's articles, it's reels, it's teasers. Um, Either me or my team, whoever's available that day, has to be ready to go because, I mean, put it this way, last night I literally had one bite of dinner every 10 minutes because that was the time that Five Sauce decided to be the most active. And the Groovy Moo owns and runs Five Sauce ANZ, so we have to be like on our game, reposting everything. And then in between that, I'm going from like 8 in the morning till sometimes 10, 11 at night, planning, designing all of the content that's going into SideQuest Week, looking at all of your guys' submissions, answering any questions you may have, directing my team because anything that they assets that they may need, files they may need, checking over everything, making sure that none of it goes live because we need to test features without having a leak by accident. So, and all of this has been planned months in advance. Well, the majority of it. There are some last minute issues, like every single time. There always is with every project. But we're doing a side quest rollout because it's side quest month, but we already know what we're doing for our Christmas issue within reason. Things are penciled in, and it's July, and we're already having to plan Christmas stuff because of how long it takes to actually build assets and visuals, and then film everything, edit everything. So I guarantee you everything is so well thought out, but that's also why you can't put all this pressure on artists and artist teams to just immediately give you exactly what you want. Because even if they've seen fan requests, even if they're like, that's a good idea, we will do that, it still takes time. You can't just immediately have what you want the second you yell it out there. Speaking of something very similar to what we've just discussed, you have media. So you've got music journalists, magazine editors, news editors, copyright. No, not copyright. Copy editor, we'll just say that. Proofreader, reviewer. You've got radio presenters, podcast hosts, podcast producers and editors, TV producers, documentary producers, bloggers, newsletter writers. And then you have licensing, music licensing. So if you want to use a song on a show or a movie or, there's so much that goes into that, so much planning, Even just going through this list, I'm realizing how small, I think my team is 10 people and we fit into multiple categories on this list. So these teams, people wear a lot of hats. We are tired. Give us a break. Like we're doing our best. But these media people, again, there's so much work that goes into this because just for articles, you need to have the idea. You need to make sure that your information is correct. You need to make sure that your reviews are fair. Absolutely discuss the strengths and the weaknesses, but, the weakness can't be this actor looks stupid or I don't like the sound with no explanation why for some song. You have to be fair, and then you have to make sure that there are no spelling errors. You don't want to end up saying no regrets instead of no regrets. There's so much that goes into that.
Yeah, with my previous magazine that I was with, the workload was quite heavy, especially if you were a photographer, because you had to go to the shows, take the photos, edit the photos, write your own article, edit your own article, review your own article, publish your own article. That was all one role, which seemed kind of odd that you would edit your own article, because it's good to have a second pair of eyes, because if you're reading, you've written everything, so you know what you said, and then you're reading what you've already said, you're likely going to miss bits anyway. Yeah, I've worn a lot of hats in this category, in the sense of marketing. And again, that was a big part of what I did in university, was a lot of the marketing and a lot of what goes on kind of behind it all, like digitally, because obviously there's different types of marketing. You could, whatever, that's a whole separate thing. But they can kind of, it kind of coexists with this fan account stuff that we were saying, that arguably fan accounts tweeting about tours and songs and albums is this natural marketing that people desperately want. Artists desperately want natural audience engagement, and you're going to get that if you produce a piece of art that is well liked, because people are going to talk about how good the songs are and how good the visuals are and how great the tour is and how fantastic the album is and how many shows you're doing at Wembley or Madison Square Garden or whatever. You're going to get all of this payoff just from one little piece of art naturally.
I agree with the so many hats thing. That's why it's like, put all of this on your CV, because you don't realize until you sit there with a list like this, like, oh gosh, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, and that's just in the last 48 hours. So the next big one that again does not get enough appreciation is publicity and communications. So you've got your publicist, your PR coordinator, communications manager, press officer, media relations manager. You've got press photographers, which kind of fit into both the arts and like visuals area, and also this one, because there's so much that goes into the communications for that. You've got your interview coordinator. So just in my day-to-day, I have to communicate with all of these different roles, because a lot of people think me and my team can go, okay, people want coverage for this concert. They want Groovy Moo photos of this concert. So I'm just going to send out one email and there it's done. No, in order to do that, I'm contacting my team and seeing who's available and who's already going to that show. Then we're contacting labels and publicists and whatever contact we have. And then we have to apply for the press pass, and it goes through label, PR, Live Nation, or whoever's running that tour. All of these people have to check it off and approve it before it then comes back to us. And usually it will go back to me or whoever's logged into the email address, and then I have to go back to whoever's actually photographing the show. So there's so much communication there. Or same with interviews, where I might be contacting the New Zealand PR person, but then if it's an international person, they've then got to go and talk to all of their international team, find a time that suits. Then the PR person will come back to me, and then I have to go back to the PR person, and then they'll go back to the team and say, yes, this time works. And then once all of that's booked in, again, I have to go back to my team and make sure that we have approved questions. We have someone who's ready to go for that interview. Then once that's done, you have to send the final edit to the PR team, who once again have to send it to the international team. Then it goes back to the PR team, back to me. Then I have to tell my team if there are any other edits. And if you're hearing this, look at how much communication is there just for one single thing. So again, the pressure you put on people when you're like, we want, for example, the amount of DMs I get on the daily of, just call up Five Sauce and get an interview about this latest tour. Have you seen how much communication goes into that? Like you've heard that, and then on top of that, they have to be free. That they're on tour, they're not free. There's so much that goes into that. So I just really want to highlight that. The next category is the actual record label itself. So you have artist and relations representatives, artist and relation coordinators, label manager, label assistant, release manager, product manager, catalog manager, distribution manager, licensing manager, which we've talked a little bit about, sync licensing specialist, and rights manager. So there is so much that goes into that. Um, and it's just, again, making sure that everything that goes out is approved, making sure that art is not used without permission, making sure that people get paid fairly. For example, the whole Taylor's version discourse that happened when she got her master's back, there are so many people on that list who would have been involved in that process for so long. And there are also so many conversations that have happened and so many extra roles that exist within that list because of that unfair treatment she had. That's why when you see that someone's been signed, for example, one that's been quite confusing for a lot of people, and I've had tons of messages of people reaching out who don't quite understand. So Midnight Till Morning are signed with Chug Music, but then they also have Universal Music Publishing. So their sync licensing, their distribution and everything is through Universal. But then their touring, their visuals, everything else is through Chug Music. But then in terms of PR, they are through someone else yet. So there are so many different little moving parts, and then all of those people need to communicate with each other to get the music out there, to book tours, yeah, you see what I mean? They're like, for every one task, there are at least 10 people behind that one task.
And the artist generally doesn't have a say in a lot of it.
Yeah, exactly. Which, keep that in mind, please.
Even if they are massive artists like Harry Styles, obviously there are points where he would have a big say in what he does on stage. It's his tour at the end of the day. But he won't be the one doing the communications. He won't be the one setting this all up. He won't be the one choosing what venue, what dates, what anything really. So when you're saying at Harry Styles, this one thing about your show I didn't like, it's like he probably didn't even go, yeah, let me make this one part specifically this way because that's what I want. He probably hired someone to do a general thing and then a team made it happen. It's not like these artists are out to get you. Like, for some reason, it's always a thing about ticket pricing, that it's the artist solely at fault for overcharging, which, yes, in some ways, there are ways that the artists themselves can reduce these massive, like, overly priced tickets, but it's not like Harry Styles is sat behind a screen going, let me charge my fans £800 for a pod ticket. Like, that's just something that was probably completely out of his control. He didn't really have a say in because it's not him or the artists that choose that. It's the labels, it's the execs, it's the managers. Like,
they are horrific when it comes to resales. They are horrific when it comes to scalpers who can just go in there, buy a whole bunch of tickets, and then overcharge fans to try and I don't even know what they're trying to do. But the point is that it's not just the one musician or artist or band that control that. There's so much that goes into it. Some tours have VIP packages, some don't. That an element of that is up to the artist. An artist might say, okay, yep, let's do meet and greets, or they might say, okay, I do want VIP, but we're not going to do meet and greets. This isn't safe. I'm not comfortable with this, whatever. So they have a list of things they do and don't want. And then that gets handed over to the team that's basically like, do with this information what you will to give the best possible experience to people who are going to show up. But they are not sitting there personally approving or chucking out different things. They are not sitting there personally going through every message. I have been really shocked at for I've seen it for Harry Styles, 5 Seconds of Summer, and Noah Khan consistently. The amount of people who will pass out and then expect free tickets, the amount of people who will feel personally attacked by something so minor and expect free tickets. For example, so I've seen someone passed out at 5 Seconds of Summer and expected free tickets. I saw somebody who was nowhere near Poopgate felt so grossed out they demanded free tickets to another Noah Khan show, which I'm like, okay, so everyone in that show suddenly gets free tickets to another show then? Like, that's insane to me. With Harry Styles, someone was literally upset at Harry himself for the heat wave. And I'm like, oh, great, because artists control the weather now. Expected free tickets because apparently they were miserable the whole time. And I'm just like, yep, great. So now they've got to, you've got to have a weather manager join the team. So that's all we have time for today. But we will go to a part 2. So stay tuned next week when we discuss so many more people that you need to be aware of behind the scenes. So that's been this week's episode. Have a groovy week.